Okay. So the previous lecture was bad things and good things. Remember? This lecture is only going to be about good things. It's always better to talk about good things and not bad things. So the good things we will talk today, now, is about how nanomaterials can help agriculture. Mostly agriculture, what people sometimes call green nanomaterials. Green is something very attractive and very good. So what we will talk about is particularly nanomaterials against bacteria, against microbial infections. We're going to talk about agricultural applications. So the topics that we will cover in this lecture, we'll talk about green synthesis of nanoparticles, particularly metal nanoparticles. As we saw in the previous lecture, nanoparticles and metal nanoparticles are very useful. Many people use them, so we will discuss good way, green ways to make nanoparticles. Then we will talk about nanoparticles in agriculture. How nanomaterials and nanoparticles can help us to get better yields, to get better agriculture, and to get better life. We will particularly talk about very interesting and important material called nanocellulose. We're going to see why nanocellulose is so important, and we're going to see where we can use nanocellulose and in what applications. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about carbon nanoparticles, which are very useful. And we're going to meet them throughout the course in other lectures also. Okay, let's start with making nanoparticles from agricultural sources, from green sources. So green sources is a general term for everything that is natural. Things that you can find in the fields, things that you can find when you grow something, things that you don't need to do chemistry to produce. This is the general title, green materials. So we're going to talk about green sources and all the good things that green sources contain. And we will describe some ways of how you take all these good things from green sources and make nanoparticles. And remember, if you make nanoparticles, you can do important things, good things with the nanoparticles. So this step is very important. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. Let's talk specifically about metal nanoparticles. You remember from the previous lectures, we talked about metal nanoparticles. These are the particles that you can use for example, oxidation, cleaning water from pollutants. So metal particles are very useful. And if you see all these things, you never thought that you can take honey, and from honey you can make metal nanoparticles. Or you can take fruit and vegetables, and from fruit and vegetables you can make metal nanoparticles. But this is true. What I'm going to show you is one or two processes that people can take these natural things and make metal nanoparticles. It's very interesting. As we saw before, metal nanoparticles can be very good for cleaning water, for example, doing oxidation and reduction. And just to remind you again, why metal nanoparticles are important. Metal nanoparticles can be used, for example, for redox reaction, reduction and oxidation. This slide is just to remind you why we want metal nanoparticles. Actually, in particular, it wasn't on. Now it is. Ooh. Did you hear all what I said? Okay. Now I can speak much softer. Just don't fall asleep. Okay, so let's see the process of making metal nanoparticles from plants. So all these things, these are sources of important molecules that can help us to make metal nanoparticles. So we put this in water, we can grind it, we can dissolve it. What's important is in this water, we're going to have all these important biological materials. Then we will put salt. Salt, as a general term, is just metal ions and their counter ions. For example, sodium plus, chlor minus, iron plus, chlor minus. All these are salts. Metal salts is something very cheap. You can buy iron chloride. You can buy magnesium acetate. You can buy salt very cheaply. So you put the salt in, and the amazing thing that can happen in this solution is that the biological molecules and enzymes from here, from the organic material, what they can do, they can reduce Turns off all the time.
I think that button is getting switched off. So you better keep it. Do you have a pocket here?
No?
Look that there.
Maybe I'll just stand here like this.
You can't do that, you know, because it's your nature.
No. I'm always moving.
Yeah. It will
Okay. That's good. Thank you. Yes, I'll do that. Thanks. He's an engineer. Okay, so we make metal nanoparticles. This is another example how to make silver nanoparticles. Okay, again, this is a real experiment. These are real pictures that I took from some paper. If you don't, maybe you have something else. Every minute I'll press here. That's okay. Don't worry. Okay, so we take what it looks to me like a broccoli or something. We take these plant, okay, we grind it very well, and we make a powder, okay. We take the Then you take the extract, the powder, and you mix it with salt. This is silver nitrate. It's a salt of silver. It's very cheap. You can buy it in the store. When you mix it together, and you get this red solution. And when you have red solution, you know that you have important ingredients that can help our health. For example, polyphenols. We have polyphenols, you know where? In green tea. Green tea has polyphenols. Polyphenols are known as antioxidants. They're very good for our health. Our health. Now, when we take metal nanoparticles in the presence of these molecules from plant extract, maybe you don't know that, but cellulose is the most common carbon material on Earth, other than carbon dioxide, for example. All the plants in the world are made of cellulose. You have cellulose particularly in the bark, you have cellulose in the leaves, you have cellulose in every plant. You know why cellulose is so important for is because of this organization. Cellulose make very strong fibers, just like our shirts. Shirts also made of fibers. Plants are also made of cellulose fibers. And not only that, is that micro to nano, different landscape. This is structure, and this is what makes cellulose so useful. So useful for plants. And also so useful for us. Because then we take the cellulose, we can make furniture, which are very strong. We can make paper, which is very thin. We can make filters. We can make clothes. We can make everything just from these cellulose nanofibers. Now, there are all these obvious applications of cellulose, but in the nano world, in nanotechnology, and here you can see some of the applications of nanocellulose. Remember, this lecture is about green nanomaterial. And nanocellulose is the creation. So there are many other things that you can make with cellulose nanofibers. This is just some examples that we can find, that I found one day for applications of find that you can use in buildings made of nanocellulose. These are coatings. Transparent film, you make a very, very thin layer of nanocellulose. If you make it so thin, light can go in. Cellulose. Now, I'll describe now some of the very interesting chemical assemblies for nano. Aerogels, we'll talk about them in a minute, and hydrogels, which are also very interesting assembly that we're going to talk in a minute. Let's talk about aerogel. Fantastic material that people make. The reason it's transparent and it's light is what you can see here. This is an electron microscopy image of aerogel made of nanocellulose fibers. See all these Now, this is a microscopy picture, but think about it. If you have this entire volume inside, it makes the material very flexible. You can stretch it, you can compress it, and it's not going to break. You can bend it, you can give it any shape you like. This is why hydrogels are very useful. The way hydrogels are built is basically you have a framework. In our case, the framework is made of nanocellulose fibers. And in the framework, you have all these water molecules that give hydrogel its special properties. So this is just a scheme, an example of nanocellulose hydrogel. So we have the nanofibers. Sometimes we have ions that we add. Okay? These are the building blocks, the cellulose building blocks. You have to add water. In this case, you start by ice crystals, and after the process, you end up with nanocellulose hydrogen. Look how cute it is. Just like something very flexible, press it, you do anything you want. You can have many types of applications with hydrogen. This is another example of useful carbon-based nanomaterial. This is called biochar. Biochar, usually, sometimes people look at it as waste, just carbon waste. Actually, biochar is also what you get after burning carbon materials. For example, burning trees, burning leaves. You have this powder, and the powder here contains many types of nanomaterials, nanoparticles. What you do with that, you get these nanoparticles. Here is biochar, which you can, actually it's called char. And when you absorb various biomolecules, you get nanoparticles, biochar. Useful material. So we talk about nanocellulose, we talk about char or biochar. Let's talk about very important class of carbon nanoparticles, which are actually very close to my heart, because I work with these carbon nanoparticles in my lab, and I'll show you this week some very interesting applications that we do with these carbon nanoparticles. Actually, these carbon nanoparticles, which are called carbon dots. Why I call them dots? Because they're very, very small. And the way to make carbon dots is actually extremely simple. You don't need to be a top scientist to make carbon dots. Basically, what you do, you can take these materials. You know what's common about these materials? Honey, banana, beans, candle, juice. What's common about all these? Carbon, exactly. All these materials contain carbon. If you take this material and you heat them, not such a high temperature, 100 degrees, you can do it at home in a stove.
Sir, can we have your mic?
What?
We can change it.
Maybe better. Okay, thank you. It will help me with my voice. Okay, I'll continue now and down. You take the carbon source and you heat it. Not high temperature. Maybe a few hours. When you look at what you get, you see that you have carbon dots. You look under the microscope, you see small nanoparticles of carbon, which are very interesting. This is actually the structure of these carbon dots. You have these carbon regions and different groups on the surface. This is the internal structure of carbon dots. Thank you. Thanks. Let's hope it's not going to stop. So again, these are other sources. what happened here? Yeah. Okay. So this is how we make carbon dots. What you can do with carbon dots? You can take carbon dots, okay, and by absorbing light, the carbon dots can help photosynthesis, for example. How they help photosynthesis? Because carbon dots, they're so small, and they have these different groups on the surface. They can absorb light and release the light and electrons for the plants to help with the photosynthesis. So these are just examples of what you can do with carbon dots in agriculture, again, as a simple carbon source that plants can use both for food and for photosynthesis. So you shine light, there's electrons that get released from the carbon dots to the chloroplast, the molecules that help plants to do photosynthesis, and that's how the plants can use it and generate important biological molecules in order to grow. Carbon dots are also can be used as delivery system, just like trucks, delivering important ions and nutrients to plants. So this is the framework of the carbon dot. And all these little things here are just ions that are important for plants, like sulfur, like phosphorus, like nitrogen, like potassium. All these molecules all these ions and atoms are important for plants. They can absorb into the carbon dots, and then plants use the carbon dots, simply eat the carbon dots for their uses. Actually, there were some scientists that showed that you can also take genetic materials, DNA. You can take small DNA, absorb the DNA inside the carbon nanoparticle, the carbon dot, and then deliver the DNA to plants in order to make the plants healthier. Again, the key thing is that because carbon dots are made of carbon, they are okay for the plants. They're not toxic. They're not like metal nanoparticles. They're just carbon, just like food. Food for us and food for the plants. So using the carbon dots, you can deliver to the plant nutrient, you can deliver genes to the plant, and you can deliver antibacterial and herbicide, all through the platform, the delivery platform of carbon dots. This is just an example of a research where the people showed that actually they took carbon dots, they mix it with chloroplast. Chloroplast are the organelles, the proteins in the plants that are responsible for photosynthesis, and they found that the carbon dots go in the chloroplast and help cells with photosynthesis. Okay? You can see here, these are just plants. With carbon dots, the more carbon dots that you put, you have better growth of the plant. So carbon dots just help plants with their photosynthesis. And that's the end. Actually, I missed something here, but that's the end of this story. Thank you. Yeah, there's one slide that I was missing here, but next time.
Second lecture has completed. If any one of you have any questions, please come up.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Of what?
What are the application of nanomaterials?
Of metallogels. Okay. So I guess what you mean are gels with metals inside. Okay. So in some cases, gels in general, people like them because they have a lot of pores inside, a lot of space that you can put other molecules, guest molecules. Metallogels are special gels with a lot of metal ions and metals in general. In some cases, you can use metallogels to deliver metals to targets. For example, you need metal in certain plants. You might need metals in certain parts of your body where you need the metals. In some cases, you just want a gel that will be very stable. And metals, if they are in the scaffold, the framework of the gel, they can make the gel very stable. So this is a special subfamily of gels, metallogels. Yes?
You have shown that in the silver synthesis, red color solution is there, but the silver ion is colorless. So why it was red?
Okay. Why it was red? Let's go to this slide and explain why it was red. I just repeat the question for everybody. 1 minute. Let's see. It's this slide here. So, yeah, the question that he was asking, silver is colorless. The extract from the plant is green. How come this is red? This is actually the special property of silver nanoparticles. Silver nanoparticles, they absorb light and they become red. It's actually called plasmonic effect. And the red color actually tells us that in the solution we have not silver ions, but silver nanoparticles. This is actually something that you can do with silver nanoparticles. You can make colors for certain uses. For example, photography. You know, in photography, in old-time photography, what people do, you had a film with silver ions. And then you add a material for processing. It's not now that you have picture instantly on the cell phone. 30 years ago, you went to a shop. You take picture with a camera, and you went to the shop to process the film and get pictures. And what you had on the film is silver ion. After you process, they became reduced, and you get silver nanoparticles, which has a color, a red color. Yes? Oh, sorry.
Regarding the color.
Yeah?
Right?
Red color, yes.
Maybe silver. But regarding
Not silver ion, but silver nanoparticles.
sorry.
Yeah.
How about the other materials?
Yeah.
Because if a mixture of polyphenols, terpenols, they may also impact.
That's certainly possible. It's if there are some other materials, they can oxidize or reduce or just absorb to the nanoparticles. Usually what people do after they make this reaction, they purify. They take the silver nanoparticles, they precipitate them, and they throw away everything else. But if you want polyphenols and all the other things, you can mix it together with the silver nanoparticles and then use it if you want. In this particular slide, all what I showed is a way to make from silver ion and extract, plant extract, how to make silver nanoparticle in very simple process, green process. You didn't have to do anything else, just mixing. If what? You're right, it depends on the plant extract. Silver nanoparticles in general are red. Sometimes they change the color depending on the size. Big particles are more blue. Small particles are more red. But absolutely, depending on the extract, depending on the material, the molecules in the extract, you can get different colors. Yeah.
Actually, I teach this topic, so I would like to add one thing. When the bulk material goes to the nanomaterial, the optical as well as the electrical property change. What sir is saying, the size dependent change in color. Okay? So that is true. When it goes in the nano level, the silver ion, which is colorless in the ion form, but when it forms the nanomaterial, which may have 100 atoms, which may have 1000 atoms, there are several models, the optical property changes. You understand?
So that is
And
detailed.
number one. Number two, that a coating. Coating is also what we say protecting agent or capping agent. That is equally affects the color of the nanomaterial as well as pH is also there. So, and in semiconducting device, this also we read in electrical property. So there is the size dependent change in its ACR. If you write in Google ACR, surface enhanced resonance, and based on surface enhanced resonance, there are tremendous application in sensing device. In MSc first sem we have nanochemistry and nanomaterial. So just write ACR, surface enhanced resonance. There you will find the absorption spectroscopy, UV visible absorption spectroscopy, as well as the fluorescence spectroscopy. What it appears, that is the fluorescence emission spectra, and what it absorbs, that is the absorption spectra. So what it appears here, red color. So that has different wavelength. What is being absorbed, that has different wavelength. Okay? So that's
Yeah. No, that's great. Actually, in a lecture in tomorrow or on Thursday, we will discuss the size dependence colors. I will mention that.
Like dots, carbon dots, I think that's
Yeah. Carbon dots change color for one reason. We will discuss it. Don't worry. Yes, sorry.
Thank you for the lecture. Sir, I have a doubt that in these synthesis of nanoparticles, metal nanoparticles, you said that we will take any plant, we'll bring it, and then we'll add the salt to it. So from salt, we'll get the metal ions. And then
Metal, yeah, from
metal
one.
ions. And then there's the aggregation which will be formed. So my question is that aggregation which is formed and is of metal ions. So that metal ions is coming from the salt only or the plant only, or they will combine?
Okay. The story here is that the aggregates actually, let's find this relevant slide. The aggregates that I was talking this one, yes? Yes, okay. Yeah, this is the slide. No, previous one. Let's see. This is good. Okay. That's even a better slide. The aggregates that I'm describing here, these are metal nanoparticles. Because what happened is, zero oxidation state. This is the extract that have all the molecules and enzymes that can reduce the salt. The salt is ions. In order to get these aggregates, you need the metals not to be ions, but to be zero oxidation state, to be elemental. So you need to give them electrons. The electrons come from here, from the extract. So you have ions, the ions get electrons, then they aggregate, and these aggregates are the metal nanoparticles. There were more questions. Yes. Okay. Carbon dots actually by themselves are not dangerous in agriculture. That's actually one of the good things about carbon dots, because these are just carbon. The problem is when carbon dots, there's two problems. One problem is that the carbon dots sometimes absorb other things from the environment that can be toxic for the plants. Because remember, carbon dots have high surface area, okay? We saw it in this picture here. Just this, okay? We saw this picture here of the carbon dots with all these things here. So sometimes carbon dots can absorb bad things if you're not careful. And then these bad things will go to the plants and then go to our body when we eat the plants. The other possibly dangerous thing is that scientists, they still don't know for sure if carbon dots are good or bad for us in our body. We think that they're not so bad. We are sure that they're not so bad as metal nanoparticles, for example. But still, there are risks, because these are small spheres, small nanoparticles. Maybe even though they are made of carbons, maybe they go into our body and they cause damage. So when you give carbon dots to plants, and after we eat the plants, we eat the carbon dots, maybe there are risks. But let me tell you something. When you eat meat, people found that when you eat cooked meat, anything cooked, if you drink beer, for example, if you eat bread, people found in all these things you have carbon dots. That's really one of the amazing things in the carbon dot world. People found carbon dots only about 30 years ago. 30 years ago, they discovered carbon dots in carbon materials. So there was a big thing, new carbon material. Then they found that you have carbon dots everywhere. So we eat meat, cooked meat, of course, hopefully. We eat bread, we drink beer. We have all these things, and thank God we're okay. We're not dead yet. So that means probably that carbon dots are okay. But of course, we need to do research and to find out whether carbon dots are good or bad. Yes?
My question is that in carbon quantum dots, when we most of the carbon quantum dots are amorphous in nature, or if yes, then how can we just we changes in nature when we drive? When we try to drive, it comes it seems amorphous. And if no, if it is possible that we can have dry sample in
Okay, actually, the question is about carbon dots which are amorphous, and if you dry them, it's still amorphous. Well, there's big discussion what is really the structure of carbon dots. We're going to talk about carbon dot more in other lectures in this course. Now, of course, when you dry it, it becomes some amorphous material, just like general carbon thing. And then it may have different properties as the small carbon dots. It's a big, big field. Big.
Is it possible that we can synthesize the specific non-amorphous nature of
It is possible. Many people do that. The question is what you will do with amorphous versus crystalline carbon dots. And this is something that is possible. You not just need to do a lot of research.
So that will be used of a structure like graphite and diamond.
Yeah, it is. Carbon dots is a relative of diamond. That's what's amazing about carbon in general. It can form different morphologies, different structures. Diamond is one, carbon dot is another. I don't know if you remember in my first lecture I talked about fullerenes, these C60s, which is another carbon material. Carbon is amazing. Yeah.
The powder form, we can take some green sources. So it's possible to take all type of green substance, or it's just a condition.
Okay. Now, when you grind, you make powder. The question is, if we can take any green material, green source, and grind it and get good things, that was the question? Now, of course, you can take any plant and you make a powder and then you dissolve it and get different things. The question is, what are the things? You know, some plants are poison. So if you grind it, you don't want to deal with it. You don't want to drink it, you don't want to eat it. Some other plants are more good. They have all these polyphenols and all these good molecules that are important for health. So my answer is that it depends on your source, on your plant. From any plant you can get molecules and you can get materials and you can make nanoparticles. The question is, what are the plants, if they're good or bad? Yes?
In fact, it's where there is that concept of net zero, means carbon emission, minimize the carbon emission. So in steel, there is a mixing of carbon. So it is possible to mix carbon dots instead of carbon and then reduce the carbon emissions, CO2 emissions.
Okay, the question is, if I understood the question correctly, about net emission. You know, it's very important to prevent carbon dioxide go to the atmosphere. We will discuss it a little bit in the future, so in the next lectures. So the question is if we can use carbon dots to reduce emission of CO2, for example, in the atmosphere. The answer is yes. Of course, carbon dots are very useful. So in principle, you can take any CO2 or carbon, other carbon, and instead of burning it or releasing it to the atmosphere, you can make carbon dots. But the problem is, every day we release to the atmosphere millions of tons of carbon. We don't need yet million tons of carbon dots. There's nothing you can do with this, okay? So, of course, if we can do useful things with carbon dioxide instead of burning it and throwing it to the atmosphere, it will be good. The question is, how? And of course, carbon dots are one example of something very useful that you can do with carbon. So that's why people like it, including myself. More questions? Okay? Oh, sure. Yes.
That talk was regarding cellulose.
Cellulose, yes.
How easy to deal with cellulose?
The question is how easy it is to work with nanocellulose or with cellulose in general. So it's not so easy like carbon dots. Carbon dots you can make in your kitchen. Nanocellulose is little more complicated, but it is possible. Basically, what you need to do, you need to take these plants and you need to break them and separate the nanocellulose. So in scientific papers, there are many protocols, many ways that you can isolate and use nanocellulose. So it's not kitchen work, but it's not a complicated work. It's something that you can do. Many people are working with nanocellulose. It's not so soluble, actually. This is one of the problems with nanocellulose. It's actually an advantage also, because you can make coatings from nanocellulose that will be resistant to water, because it's not dissolved in water. So this is something, for example, you can make coating that cannot be dirty, because all the water will go away. So, like everything, there's good and bad. But it is a very interesting material, and they're very, yeah, and there's lots of cellulose, and there's many applications with nanocellulose.
Sir, in your support, I want to say.
Yeah.
When you go into the laboratory, take silver nitrate and just use lemon, and just split it. You will get the silver nanoparticle. The citric acid, which is
That's right.
present in the lemon, that will work as a reducing agent as well as a capping agent. Or else what chemist will do, he use sodium borohydride as a reducing agent. So here, I think as I understand, sir has taken all the time green sources, so that green sources used as a reducing agent as well as a capping agent. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a beautiful experiment. You can try.
You are chemistry student, so you should know the whole mechanism also.
So same thing will work with polyjuice. Same thing will work with polyjuice.
That I have not tried.
Less.
Citric acid should be there. Citric acid should be there.
There's more questions. Yeah? Yeah.
Sir, you know, heavy metals have very bad effects on the body, and it can last many years.
Yeah.
More than other nanoplastics. So my question is, potent metal nanoparticles. So can it say harmful for our body? Same like that, or and is there any degradation process or mechanism regarding this?
Okay, the question is about metal nanoparticles. Are they bad for us just like heavy metals? Now, of course, as I showed in the beginning, in I think the previous lecture, metal nanoparticles can go into our tissues and cells. They can reduce or oxidize, and then they can cause damage because they can generate oxidative species, reactive oxidative species, so they can be very bad for us. There are ways to break them and clean them, which is also something that we can develop. They can be sometimes even more dangerous than the metal nanoparticles themselves.
Raj, for your very inspiring lecture. And I think the students have, it was indeed a very inspiring and interesting lecture. It's a common actually topic, and a lot of things can be done out of these green materials. So number one is what are green materials, number two, how can you use it and where you can use it. So it's a very, very big topic, very vast topic. So I thank you, sir, for giving my students this knowledge, and now we'll take a break for lunch, and the next session will start at 2 p.m. Right?
आना है सबको, ऐसा नहीं लंच के बाद भाग गए।
आने के बाद तो
हाँ।
सोएंगे।
Yeah, one more.